welcome to my storytelling space. A story is waiting. Join us. Come in. And now, if you're ready, the tale will begin. Once upon a time, there were two brothers, a rich brother and a poor brother. Now, the poor brother was generous and kind in spirit, but the rich brother was arrogant and mean. Now, on occasions, the poor brother would go to his rich brother and ask him if he could have some food because he didn't have enough to feed his family. One Christmas Eve, he had no choice but to go to the house of his rich brother. And so he went and he knocked on the door. And when the rich brother opened up the door, he said, "What do you want this time?" And the poor brother said, "I am wondering if you could spare some meat so that my family and I could have a Christmas dinner." Well, the rich man paused for a moment and then he said, "Just wait." And he went back into his house, and when he came out, he was carrying a whole piece of ham. Well, the poor brother was amazed. But when the rich brother gave it to him, he said, "If you take this meat, you must go first to visit the dreaded hall, and then you may go home." Well, the poor brother had no choice but to agree. And so he promised that he would visit the dreaded hall on his way home. And so he set off to the dreaded hall before going home. But on the way, he met a woodcutter. And the woodcutter asked him, "Where are you going?" And the poor brother explained his circumstances, and the woodcutter said, "Well, may I give you just one piece of advice?" And the woodcutter went on to say, "If you get to the dreaded hall, everyone there will want your ham. They love ham, but don't trade it or barter for anything except a little wooden mill that they keep behind the door." Well, the poor man thanked the woodcutter for his advice and went on his way. And sure enough, when he got to the dreaded hall, everybody in there wanted that piece of ham. And they offered him this and that and this and that. But the poor brother remembered the woodcutter's advice and would not take anything except for the little wooden mill. Finally, those in the dreaded hall agreed, and they passed him the little wooden mill. And the poor brother gave him the ham. Well, on the way back, the woodcutter said, "Now, just remember, here is how you use that little mill. Put it down and say, 'Little mill, please grind.' And that mill will grind whatever you want. But in order to make it stop, you must say, 'Little mill, please stop.'" Well, the poor brother thanked the woodcutter and went straight home and gathered his family all around, put the mill on the table and said, "Let's try out what this little mill can do." And so he said, little mill, please grind sausages." And oh, that little mill began to grind sausage after sausage after sausage till there was enough for everyone in his family. And then he said, little mill, please stop." Well, after that day, the poor brother never wanted for anything. And you remember I said that he was kind and generous in spirit, and so he helped all his friends and neighbors who were also poor. And so things were going very well. Well, now the rich brother wondered why his poor brother had not been up to see him, and so he snuck down early one morning and peeked in the window of the poor brother's house. And when he did, he saw the poor brother put the little mill on the table and say, little mill, please grind porridge." And that little mill began to grind out porridge to fill each of the bowls on the table. Well, the rich man knew he wanted that mill for himself. And so he quickly ran right back to his house without waiting to see how to stop the mill. And he sat there and he thought, "I will go down tonight and I will steal the mill." So in the middle of the night, he went down. He tiptoed into his brother's house and he picked up the little mill and he ran as fast as he could back home. Now the next morning he took his mill down to the ship that he owned, because that was how the rich man made his money. He would get on his ships and he would go somewhere and collect all sorts of goods. He would bring them back and sell them and make a lot of money. But now, with this mill, he would get so rich. He got on his ship. He took the little mill with him, and they sailed that ship out into the middle of the ocean. And then he stopped his ship and he said to the mill, little mill, please grind salt." Because that rich brother knew that everyone in the world needed salt. And that little mill began to grind salt. And that salt began to fill up the empty hole, the bottom of the ship. And that little mill ground and ground salt, and the hold filled up and up and up and up until the whole empty bottom of that ship was now full. And then that salt began to spill out over top onto the deck of the ship. And the ship was getting heavier and heavier, and mounds of salt were beginning to build up all over the ship. And so the rich brother said, "Stop." But that little mill didn't stop. And he said, "Stop, mill." But that mill did not stop. Salt kept coming out and out and out. And the ship was getting heavier, and it began to sink. And the more the salt piled up high on the deck of the ship, the more the ship sank lower and lower and lower into the water until it sank right to the bottom of the ocean. And the seas and the oceans began to take that salt and spread it out all around. And so if you go down to the seas and the oceans and you dip your hand in and you taste it, it will be salty. Because there's nobody there to say, little mill, please stop." And so that little mill keeps grinding and grinding and grinding salt to this very day. And that is a Norwegian tale, and it is called "Why the Seas Are Salty," or "Why the Ocean's Salt." So I hope you enjoyed that, and next time you're down at an ocean or a sea, taste the water. See if you think that little mill is still there. And so, until next time, bye-bye.